Hi, it's the Lunch Pail Theologian, Jim Hinton. Thanks for joining me. It's time once again for another episode of What Happened Last Week, only this episode is what happened 2 weeks ago, since it's been difficult to keep up with all of the activity between Minnesota, Davos, and Greenland. So let's get started. What happened 2 weeks ago? Sunday, January 18th, 2026 to Saturday, January 24th, 2026. At 45 years old, Venus Williams set a new record at the 2026 Australian Open as the oldest woman to compete in the singles main draw, surpassing Kimiko Date's 2015 record. Appearing via wildcard, Williams lost her first round match to Olga Danilovich 6-7 with a tiebreaker, 6-3, 6-4, despite leading 4-0 in the third set. Despite a long break from the tournament, she led early against her 24-year-old opponent, showing competitive form in her first round appearance. Again, entering as a wild card and ranked number 576, this marked her first appearance at the Australian Open in 5 years. She indicated plans to continue competing in the tournament's doubles event. Afterwards, Williams described the moment as amazing and expressed pride in her continual improvement, stating she is relearning how to do things. Also, on January 18th, anti-ICE protesters interrupted a Sunday service at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, targeting lead pastor David Easterwood, who also serves as the acting director for Immigration and Customs Enforcement's ICE St. Paul field office. Demonstrators, including activist Nikema Levy Armstrong and former CNN anchor Don Lemon, entered the church to protest, chanting "ICE out" and calling for resignations due to the recent fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good. On Monday, January 19th, 2026, the Buffalo Bills fired head coach Sean McDermott after 9 seasons following a 33-30 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos in the AFC divisional round. Despite consistently high regular season win totals, the decision stemmed from an inability to reach the Super Bowl. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady was promoted to succeed McDermott. General manager Brandon Beane was promoted to president of football operations. The reason? Ownership cited a need for a new leadership structure to reach the next level after 4 playoff exits in the divisional round over 5 seasons. McDermott finished his Bills tenure with 8 playoff appearances in 9 seasons. McDermott was credited with transforming the culture of the team, though the team's defensive failures in critical late-game playoff moments were highlighted as a reason for his departure. Also, as of January 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, has launched an investigation and issued subpoenas to top Minnesota officials, including Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, regarding allegations that they obstructed federal immigration enforcement. The investigation centers on accusations that Walz and Frey conspired to impede federal immigration agents, ICE, through their public comments, rhetoric, and actions following increased federal operations in the Twin Cities. The DOJ probe is looking into whether the actions of the officials violated a Civil War-era statute that makes it a crime for 2 or more people to conspire to prevent federal officers from carrying out their duties through force, intimidation, or threats. The scrutiny follows intense tension between local and federal officials after an ICE official fatally shot Renee Good on January 7th, 2026. Walz and Frey have criticized the federal response, with Frey publicly telling federal agents to leave Minneapolis. The DOJ has issued subpoenas requiring records, including information on the cooperation or lack of cooperation with federal authorities. Walz and Frey have denied wrongdoing, with both calling the investigation a bullying tactic, a dangerous authoritarian tactic, and a political action aimed at intimidating local leaders. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and other federal officials have accused the Minnesota leaders of encouraging, impeding, and assaulting our law enforcement. Encouraging, impeding, and assault against our law enforcement, said Kristi Noem. The investigation was in its early stages, and no criminal charges had been filed. On Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, Don Lemon was put on notice by the Department of Justice for his involvement in the January 18th interruption of a church service at City's Church in Minneapolis, St. Paul, by anti-ICE activists. Also, a severe Arctic blast was forecasted to affect the U.S. in early February of this year, bringing dangerous, life-threatening sub-zero wind chills, particularly to the Midwest, Northeast, and Plains. The cold snap was expected to be relatively short-lived for some areas, but will cause temperatures to drop significantly below average, with dangerous risks of frostbite. Intense cold from the Midwest to the Northeast, with impacts reaching as far south as Texas. The blast was expected to hit hardest starting Friday night, January 30th, through early the following week. Wind chills could drop to negative 15 degrees in some areas, making it dangerous to spend extended time outdoors. Potential for light snow, flurries, high winds, and rapid temperature drops. The extreme cold is expected to ease by mid-next week, the following week, that is, with some regions seeing a significant quick warm-up. Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. A major showdown occurred at the January World Economic Forum in Davos between Donald Trump and European leaders regarding his demands for the U.S. to acquire Greenland. Trump threatened tariffs and questioned the sovereignty of the Danish territory before backing down on threats of force following strong European opposition, though he signaled the issue remains open. Trump aimed to acquire Greenland, a self-governing territory of Denmark, citing strategic, resource-driven, and national security interests. In the lead-up to Davos, Trump threatened to impose tariffs on several European nations that opposed his takeover bid. At Davos, Trump maintained that the U.S. still desired the territory. European leaders strongly opposed the moves, with some stating Europe will not be blackmailed over the issue, forcing a rare direct confrontation over sovereignty and challenging Trump's approach to alliances. Despite the de-escalation in Davos, the episode highlighted deep continuing friction between the U.S. and its European allies regarding the Arctic region's future. Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, Donald Trump announced at the World Economic Forum in Davos that a framework deal for the future of Greenland had been reached with NATO. While Trump claimed this secured U.S. interests, the agreement focuses on Arctic security rather than a direct purchase. The deal follows threats of tariffs, which were dropped. Trump stated he reached a framework of a future deal on Arctic security with NATO Security General Mark Rutte. The deal involves NATO strengthening security in Greenland to counter Russian and Chinese influence, specifically focusing on Arctic security rather than the outright acquisition. No purchase or takeover. While Trump previously discussed buying the island, this framework did not result in a sale or military takeover of Greenland. Some sources describe it as an infinity or forever deal regarding security and mineral interests, while others indicate that details are vague and the Danish government has rejected the idea of ceding sovereignty. This agreement marks a pivot from his earlier aggressive and often dismayed proposals to purchase the territory in 2019. Also, reportedly, House Oversight Committee voted to advance contempt of Congress resolutions against former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The committee approved the measures due to their failure to comply with subpoenas related to an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, with some Democrats supporting the move. The House Oversight Committee voted on Wednesday, January 21st, to advance the resolutions. The contempt charges stem from the Clintons' refusal to comply with subpoenas regarding the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Following the committee's vote, the resolutions were sent to the full House for a vote planned for the following week, as reported by Politico. Friday, January 23rd, 2026, Vice President J.D. Vance defended ICE agents regarding the detention of a 5-year-old boy in Minnesota, stating the child was not arrested but was with his father, who fled during an apprehension. Vance questioned, are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? And argued the action was to protect the child. ICE agents detained a 5-year-old boy and his father in Columbia Heights, Minnesota, after the father reportedly fled during the stop, according to reports. Vance suggested the child was not the direct target of arrest, but was taken into custody for safety reasons. The remarks were part of a broader defense of the administration's immigration enforcement operations in Minnesota. Criticism. The incident drew criticism and attention to the methods used by federal agents. Also, former special counsel Jack Smith was intensely questioned or grilled by House Republicans during a House Judiciary Committee hearing yesterday, following a December 2025 closed-door deposition. Republicans led by Representative Jim Jordan accused Smith of political weaponization regarding his prosecutions of Donald Trump and subpoenas for GOP phone records. GOP lawmakers targeted Smith's decision to subpoena phone metadata for multiple Republican lawmakers as part of the 2020 election interference investigation. Members alleged that Smith acted as part of a Democratic conspiracy to interfere in the 2024 election, though Smith defended his team's actions as proper, independent, and evidence-based. During both the private and public, Smith stood by his investigation, claiming he had evidence of a historic crime and that he acted consistent with Department of Justice policies despite GOP objections. The hearing aimed to scrutinize the tactics and motivations behind the investigations into Trump's handling of classified documents and efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Smith testified that the phone records were necessary for the investigation, pushing back against claims that the actions were politically motivated. Saturday, January 24th, 2026, Alex Jeffrey Petty was shot and killed by federal agents, a 37-year-old nurse. Identified as Border Patrol agents and linked to ICE Immigration and Custom Enforcement investigations in Minneapolis on Saturday, the incident is under investigation by the FBI and DOJ, and 2 agents were placed on administrative leave following the shooting. Petty was shot multiple times near 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, confirmed a civil rights investigation. This was the third shooting involving federal immigration agents in Minneapolis within a 3-week period. The investigation is ongoing to determine the circumstances surrounding the shooting. Also, National Peanut Butter Day and Global Belly Laugh Day was on Saturday, January 24th. These days encourage enjoying the popular spread, whether creamy or crunchy, I like crunchy, and sharing hearty laughter respectively. Ho, 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 ho. And that does it for what happened 2 weeks ago, January 18th to January 24th, 2026. Special thanks to my cat, Rory, for her input. And this has been a Shoestring Productions. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and look for more What Happened Last Week coming at you.